So welcome to the UN Global Compact 20th Anniversary Leader Summit. You are now in the global breakout session organized by the Global Compact Network Thailand. And we're having a virtual panel sessions focusing on the topic, Build Back Better. This is resilience. What we decide now will shape our future and our destiny. And you're having me, Siriya Kongsumpong, as the moderator for these sessions. We're so honored to welcome all our 5 panelists who are the top leaders from different sectors. And hi, welcome you all to the session. Thank you so much to having you with us here today. So our audiences are from different parts of the world. So would each of you please introduce yourself and your organization? Shall we start this with Ms. Somriti Chaimong? Could you please introduce yourself and organization, please?
สวัสดีค่ะ Thank you very much, Kun Kay, and thanks to the UNGC for inviting Banpo to join this conversation on business resilience and building back better. So just a little bit of my background. Let me share the screen. So just for myself, I am privileged to join Banpo at the beginning when it was first established in 1983. And I was very fortunate to have a mentorship from Mr. Chanin, who is the founder of Banpo. And I was eventually appointed as the CFO of Banpo in 2006 and then CEO in 2015. My goal is to deliver the greener, smarter strategy for the value of Banpo. While we have already achieved a substantial transformation, it is still a work in progress. And while the COVID-19 crisis has brought major challenges for Banpo, it has also stimulated the acceleration of our transition in ways which I can explain later in our conversation today. So just a bit on the big picture of Banpo. We currently operate in 10 countries. From a humble roots as a small mining project in the northern part of Thailand, over the past 3.5 decades, Banpo has grown to become a leading Pan-Pacific Rim integrated energy solution company. Banpo has been a pioneer in the Asia energy sector since its early days. For example, as one of first private sector on the IPP developers in the Southeast Asian power sector since 1990. In more recent years, we have been diversifying beyond coal and thermal power to expand rapidly in gas and a lower carbon fuel in clean energy technology. Banpo is now a top 20 gas producer in the US, and we have become a leading renewable energy developer in Asia. And we also established a cutting-edge energy technology solution business focused around energy storage systems, e-mobility, smart infrastructure, electricity trading, and an innovation lab. So although clean energy tech is very relative, recent focus for Banpo in the energy sustainability has always been the heart of our strategy. The energy sustainability has 3 essential features: affordability, reliability, and eco-friendliness. So we are pioneering energy projects around Asia, have been a catalyst in the region, unprecedented economic growth since then, a process which has ultimately pulled nearly 1 billion people out of extreme poverty. And while we have always ensured that the operation brings maximum benefit to the host ecosystem since 2015, we have refocused our corporate strategy around harnessing the mega trend of our era, the 3Ds: decarbonization, digitalization, and decentralization. The new strategy is what we refer to as greener, smarter strategy. So I would pause for now and let other participants to introduce themselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Somriti. That's from the energy sustainable part. And the next one, I think I'm so glad that we have top leaders from different industry. The next one, I'd like to invite Dr. Darren McBain. Would you please introduce yourself?
Good morning. Lovely to be here. Thank you, everyone. It's an honor to join this UN Leaders Summit platform. So I represent Thai Union here today, and I am the Director of Corporate Affairs and Sustainability. I've been with Thai Union since 2015, and I'm so proud of how Thai Union has grown. So Thai Union is headquartered in Bangkok and listed on the Stock Exchange of Thailand, but operates globally. It's one of the largest seafood companies in the world, and we manufacture in 17 different locations, and we have our key markets in the US, Europe, and in Asia. So we really do operate global supply chains, and it's a great example of how a company that started from a family heart has expanded to providing food around the world. And during this time with COVID-19, I think it's really highlighted the importance of those connections of people, but particularly for supply chains and understanding how we get food to people around the world. And so we've been working a lot on resilience, but also building on our own sustainability strategy, which is called Sea Change. So in Sea Change, we already look at 4 pillars, which are safe and legal labor, responsible sourcing, people and communities, and responsible operations. And I think during the recent crisis, it's really showed us why sustainability is so vital to businesses and to help you to continue, but also on the concept of building back better and how we can improve, how we can have food security for a growing global population, but also how do we serve all of the people, whether it's through social justice, providing food, or providing an employment. We're also members of the United Nations Global Compact, proudly for several years, and we align our work primarily with 3 of the Sustainable Development Goals. So as a food company, we look at zero hunger, so SDG 2. Also, we look at decent work and economic growth, which is SDG 8, particularly from the aspect of ending modern slavery. And as a seafood company, we absolutely must link with the oceans. So we support SDG 14, which is life below water. So it's not to say we don't look at the other SDGs, but it definitely helps us give a framework. And I'd love to expand more on that later in today's session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Darian. I'm so glad that you and the Thai Union Province will fully support for the SDG goals, and we're going to explore in the next 2 questions. Now, can I turn the session to our next guest panelist? Can I invite Mr. Ringrod Punpon? Would you please introduce yourself and the organization to us, please?
Hi, my name is Ringrod. I am the president of technology of K-Bank, one of the top 5 bank in Thailand. And basically, Kasikorn Bank or K-Bank, we just celebrate 75 years of foundation, and we aim to be a bank of sustainability for our society, for our nation, and for our economy by addressing 9 out of 17 UN SDGs. And we are focusing on the environment, and we basically achieved the carbon neutral certification in 2019, and 4 years that we got listed in Dow Jones Sustainability Indexes. And we adopt the green DNA, which is the central building blocks of our organization culture. So that and through Kasikorn Thai Foundation, we also invest and also support the education goals and also environmental goals in the rural area of Thailand. And I'm also the board member of Thailand Education Partner, which is the alliances of 11 leading organizations that try to address the education reform in Thailand, and that include Ministry of Education and also the Industrial Council of Thailand and also the Thai Chamber of Commerce. And I'm also a founder of Disrupt Technology Venture, which is the education program that educate 1,500 startup founders, social innovators that try to address the several problems in Thailand through startup education and technology. So that's all about me, and I would like to pass it on to the next panelist.
Okay, thank you for helping me. So last but not least, thank you so much. You have shared your passion a lot about the education, which is a part of the SDG as well. And last but not least, I'd like to invite our last guest into the panel. May I welcome Mr. Harlan K. Would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, Sawadee Krap. Thank you. Very good morning to everyone, and good to see everyone here all over the world. And first of all, a very big thank you to UNGC for putting this together. I represent Taiwan Group. We are listed here in Thailand. We have 14 operations around the region. primarily focus on a range of different food and food ingredients. So with operations both in Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, China, Indonesia. Our business, we operate in 3 different segments. So first of all, we've got a consumer foods division. So we produce noodles and ready-to-eat packages around the region. Second of all, one of the largest B2B food ingredients and tapioca processors in the region. And thirdly, we're focusing on developing a new range of bioplastics and plant protein. The long-term goal of Taiwan is really to see how we can actually develop innovation and sustainability from farm to shelf. So as some of you may know, Thailand is one of the largest tapioca producers in the world. There are over 1 million to 2 million households in Thailand and across the region that actually farm tapioca products. So we work very closely with the farmers upstream in terms of new technologies, new harvesting methods, new productivity. And one of the focus of the company is to really think through in the next 5 or 10 years how we actually can create value from farm all the way to the shelf. So thank you very much, and I look forward to spending time with you today.
Thank you. Thank you. May I call you Ren? Thank you so much for being with us today. And I'm so glad that Mr. Yash finally you can join us. So Mr. Yash.
It's not Yash, it's Richard. So what's happened is that Yash has suddenly come down with food poisoning and he asked me whether I wouldn't mind stepping in.
Will he be the representative of Mr. Yacht, Mr. Richard?
Yes. I mean, I'm the head of sustainability, so I should know what he's going to talk about.
Go ahead. Yes. Please introduce yourself and what you do with Indorama.
Right, so I'm Richard Jones. I'm the head of sustainability for Indorama Ventures. Indorama Ventures, if you don't already know, is the world's largest producer of polyethylene terephthalate, or PET. We're also one of the largest, not the largest, but one of the largest recyclers. And we're among a very few group of companies that both produce and recycle. So we're one of the few that has invested in the circular economy. We generally like to join with various organizations globally, usually PET organizations that try to change the way that we think about plastic and also trying to make sure that plastic waste doesn't happen. So we're very much following a lot of the UN SDGs, and one of the most important ones for us, of course, is responsible consumption, it's SDG number 12. But because a lot of people are very concerned about global warming these days, then we're also doing lots of activities under SDG 13, which is climate action. And because of the issue with plastic waste, we're also looking at helping people with things that, well, life below water, SDG 14, SDG 15, life on land. And we do all this via partnerships, which is SDG 17. So the key for our development in the future will be to ensure that people understand that we can create a circular economy, and the way to do it in the case of PET, and we should be aware that there are many types of plastics, but PET is the one that can be recycled very easily and cheaply. And therefore, by encouraging people to recycle their PET waste, we can take it off their hands and have it recycled and made into new materials. That's the sort of brief outline of what we do. Now, one of the major organizations that we've decided to join with is the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And what we did there was we made a commitment that from what we do today, we were going to increase about 7 times our recycling to about 750,000 tons of PET bottles by 2025. Now, to reach that target, we've set a budget of $1.5 billion US. To date, since we started recycling in 2011, we've recycled over 50 billion bottles, which is a huge amount. And because we're growing, we're actually investing in more recycling. We hope that by the year 2025, we'll be recycling 50 billion bottles per annum, which is quite a target to achieve. And the only way we can do this really is by building, buying, and expanding the facilities that we already have. So we've expanded in Thailand, for example, we've expanded the recycling facility that we have in Nakhon Pathom by 2 times. And just last week, we bought our first recycling facility in Brazil. So in Brazil, we're one of the largest PET manufacturers today. So we thought it appropriate that we actually go into recycling. So the main theme of Indorama Ventures today is to make, recycle, and produce something new, which is made from recycled PET. So in places like Europe, where a lot of the big drinks companies like Coke and Pepsi have already committed to putting a certain amount of recycled PET into their bottles, we're also trying to have this done in other parts of the world. So in let's say Philippines, I think this is the first time we've ever joined with a customer. We're building, I haven't finished it yet, but we're building a recycling plant in a joint venture with Coca-Cola so that they can actually ensure that bottles are collected and brought to us. And what they've said is it's not just their bottles. They'll collect everybody's bottles and bring it to this facility eventually. So slowly but surely, we've started expanding around the world now, and people should expect us to go further. One of the things that we've been doing very successfully, I've been told by others, it's not my opinion, is we do a lot of education. And that means I have a full-time team that goes to schools mainly, but it also goes to offices sometimes to teach about waste recycling, waste separation, because we found that a lot of people don't really understand the necessity of recycling, and they don't understand that some of it is worth money. So for present, I think a lot of people do understand. So we're trying to push the education further, because we realize without education, we can't get this situation sorted out.
That's very interesting. Richard Jones, can we come back for all those interesting points regarding to recycling? And I'm so glad you come from different industry and you have a different expertise. And please feel free to bring your expertise and share in our conversation. So I think I meant not only for our panelists, but also the audience from around the world. Feel free to interact with us and chat with us, or even give us a question so we can come back to the Q&A at the end of the session, all right? So let's get back to the key topic of our focus today, to build back better. And for each of you and each round, I invite all of you to share what your thoughts about each question. So the first question will be about, to build back better, how should your company emerge stronger if you can both not only plan now, but act now for a sustainable future? And these sessions bring back to Ms. Somriti. So would you please share with us your thoughts about this question?
Thank you, Harlan K. I believe the most important foundation is the company cultures. So at Banpo, we put great emphasis on developing a resilient culture. For example, the adaptability and continuous improvement. We cannot see what black swan or green swan events will bring future disruption, but we can strengthen ourselves to survive and thrive in times of change. So at Banpo, the culture is so-called Banpo Heart. It's focused on passion, innovation, and commitment. I think it's also worth considering the idea that we should go beyond the concept of resilience to develop a culture of anti-fragility. The term was coined by Nazim Nicholas Taleb, the author of The Black Swan. Resilience is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. However, our target is not going back to the things were before the crisis. And maybe we shouldn't have been working toward a new normal. Perhaps we need to be thinking in terms of never normal business model, which elevate people and the planet and align with corporate shareholders' value. We need to build better companies and a better, more sustainable economy. Being anti-fragile is consistent with this idea and goes beyond resilience. The resilient resists shocks and stays the same. The anti-fragile gets better. gets better through surviving shocks and difficulties. So at Banpo, we have weathered many storms in the past, including the Asian crisis in 1997 and the Lehman crisis in 2008. We have not only survived each of these emergencies, but after each one, we have emerged stronger than before and even more engaged with and aligned with our stakeholders. In the current crisis, we quickly pivoted our CSR program to donate food and medical supplies to those most severely hit by COVID-19 and to keep our frontline medical staff safe. This provides much needed support to our communities, but it gives us great experience in the testing of our e-mobility services. I believe that our resilience and ability to work with our stakeholders to tackle crisis drives first and foremost from the kind of culture which we have cultivated in our company over the years. So we all need to get a lot better at identifying and preparing for other highly probable disruptive trends. The COVID-19 pandemic, so clearly anticipated by Bill Gates in 2015, and that is called the Gray Rhino. If you come across the book on the Gray Rhino, it anticipates a lot of things that we didn't expect to happening. So the negative and harness this Gray Rhino. Banpo is focusing its strategy around clean energy technology, smart infrastructure, and supply chain management theme, as well as the digital connectivity. So with us, we look at the 3 Ds: decarbonizing, digitalizing, and decentralizing. So all of those that allow us to enter into a more modernized electricity services, and also all of those smart city, as we call smarter in our greener and smarter energy. So I will pause for this question and let's other panelists go to the next question. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Summers. So it's clean energy, and to build back, we focus a lot on being resilient and to build the culture as well. So I totally agree with what you've said. So what about the global food supply chain expert? I'm heading our discussion next to Dr. Darren. What would you say about this to emerge stronger? Please, Dr. Darren.
Thank you. So I think with COVID-19, we've seen that with great challenges come great opportunities, and never has there been more demand, I think, on the global food supply chain. And it helps us reflect upon how we operate our business now, but also the kind of business that we want to be in the future. So I thought I'd focus on 4 main areas that I see that we can really make a difference and that are very much aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals. So the first one is around people. Now, nothing has shown us that global supply chains and food supply chains in particular are based on people like this current situation with COVID-19. Because when you have people getting sick, when you have people who are unable to migrate for their jobs, when they can't go home, then you start to have interruptions to the supply chain. It's not necessarily what you're processing or even the food itself, it's how do people work along that supply chain. And I think in different countries, whether you're in Thailand or the United States or in Europe, people are seeing that global supply chains do reach around the world and that we need to look after people and to build resilience in those supply chains so that people can continue to work to give us food. And so it really strengthens our work to do with human rights. The second area I'd like to raise is on food security. And I think we get a great opportunity to really understand the diversification of our supply chains. Are we too reliant on one country or one fishery, for example? Can we have the breadth of different species that we can continue to feed a growing global population? So with Thai Union, it's certainly helping us look in this time of how do we source our different raw materials? Where can we produce? As I said, we produce in many different countries. And how can we make those supply chains stronger to ensure that people get the food that they need? And it's one of the areas where, for example, ambient tuna, so shelf-stable canned tuna, has really come into its own. There is, in many countries, there's been a huge demand for canned tuna because it's something that people can have in their cupboard when there is a crisis. If they can't go to the supermarkets, they can rely on this form of protein that's ready to eat and nutritious. And I think that leads me to my next point, which is about traceability. So with COVID-19, people are starting to really consider where their food comes from and is it safe? So at first you had people questioning supply chains from China, but obviously this is a global issue. It's not related just to China. But we're finding that consumers want to know more about where does their food come from? Is it safe? Has it been produced well and to high hygiene standards? And also, is it sustainable? And so we have a real opportunity now, but also for planning for the future of how can we communicate that information to our consumers about where their food comes from. And it also gives us an opportunity for looking at how do we source. So for us, we talk about healthy living and healthy oceans. So we know that if the oceans aren't healthy, people can't be healthy. We can't source fish, but also it impacts climate change. It impacts the Earth's temperature, has an impact with plastics, as Richard was talking about. So many things are tied up with the oceans that we need to make sure that we can have healthy oceans for people to have healthy living. And then just finally, I think also it's that circular economy. So going on with the idea of plastics, how can we build back all of these supply chains better so that we aren't producing as much waste, we're very resource efficient with what we have, and we can link with different communities along the way. So I think there's great opportunities to come out of this. Obviously, we're still suffering from some of the challenges of COVID-19, but there definitely is a chance to build back better. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Darian. So circular economy and all the supply chain that connect people with the nature, that become the key things that will help us to emerge back, but stronger and together. So with this one, the other point of view from different perspective, I would like to invite to our panel. Can I turn the panel to Mr. Ringrod? Would you please share your thoughts about this from your perspective?
Yes, I guess definitely COVID-19 is one of the greatest crises that everyone has to face right now. But like the saying say, don't let any crisis go to waste. So for K-Bank, we focus on transforming without losing our soul. And because our soul and our DNA, they're like as part of the banking, sustainable banking, like the bank of sustainability that has been part of K-Bank for 75 years. So there are a lot of areas, like I said before, there are 9 areas of the 17 UN SDGs that K-Bank try to address. But there are a few areas that K-Bank want to participate, because for K-Bank and also the many business organization, I think we need to be part of the society, and we need to be part of the solution to solve the problem of the society at large. So we focus on education, which is it's the at COVID-19, we know that 500,000 people will lose their job, both the new graduate and also the people that will be unemployed due to the crisis. So that we create, we work with our partner to create a content to reskill the labor forces for the whole Thailand. And we expect by the end of this year, there will be between 500,000, between 500,000 to 1 million learning hours for Thai people to upskill themselves and to reskill themselves on the critical digital skill. We create a class to create a website. We create a free class, for people to learn basic data engineering or data science, that kind of stuff. And we will continue to do that. And it's good for our company as well. But why? Because that's a way to attract a talent, and at the same time we create a talent for the country. So we turn that kind of crisis into the opportunity. And the second area that we focus on education as well, we work with the Equitable Education Fund, to create education hackathon that just finished. So Equitable Education Fund is the government focus on providing funds to support equitable education. And we work hand in glove with them to co-create the education hackathon to provide innovative solution and idea, and with the social innovators, throughout the country, to brainstorm and come up with the project, to solve the education problem. Because one of the big problem that the whole country is facing is that 4.3 million students, especially underprivileged students, because we have to delay the opening of the school, and every single day these kids don't get enough food and they don't get enough nutrition, because the only source of their nutrition and food is via their school. So that's one of the problem, of the many problem we try to address. And we have 500 plus social innovators, throughout the country to participate, and we come up with 150 plus ideas and projects that we will fund, and then we will accelerate the change to support that kind of equitable education goal, especially for the underprivileged kids. And also as part of the board member of Thailand Education Partners, so we create a sandbox, a sandbox, education sandbox in 4 provinces. So that in that sandbox, it's where the corporations and also the government, including the Ministry of Education and also the local community, can work together in the special regulatory zone, to create a holistic, test box and sandbox, revamping curriculum, that kind of stuff, and also changing the payment scheme, and also focusing teacher back to teaching, rather than doing administrative and bureaucracy work, that kind of stuff. We are testing that in 4 provinces, and I think it's a great model, for the company to work together hand in glove with the government and also the local community, to solve the societal problem. I'll say a business organization, they need to revisit their purpose. And business organization, it basically exists to solve the society problem. Without that kind of purpose, it's the business doesn't have any reason to exist at all. And I would say I would say to even say that, business, we shouldn't call ourselves business leader. We should call ourselves a leader. We are leader, forget business. We are leader to solve a society problem, and business exists to solve the society problem, and society reward us, by giving us the reason to exist for long term. And sometimes we need to sacrifice the short-term profit. For KBank, we sacrifice a lot of short-term profit to support our SME customer. We cut into our profit, this year, so that our SME customer can still employ their employee, especially the small people, and KBank provide support to that, a lot of SME customer, especially the hard hit sector like tourism. And then because we know, the reason that we exist for 75 years, because sometimes and many times during the crisis, we provide a lot of support beyond just, the business purpose, which is providing loan, that kind of stuff. Because I think everyone here as well would agree with me that during this time of crisis, business has to do a lot and beyond to support the society, so that we can maximize the impact, and also focus on the long-term sustainability of the whole society that we are part of.
Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot. So I've heard you say a lot about, the role of being the leader for the future, that if we are part of society, we are part of the solution as well. And that's a strong passion for you and KBank, and related to education, for upskill and reskill for over 1 million hours. So I'm glad that we have a different perspective for this panel, whether from clean energy, food supply chain, circular economy from Dr. Darren, or even education. Ren, your turn now. We wonder, what will be your thoughts on this one from Taiwan?
Yeah, I think for Taiwan, we actually saw COVID-19 in the last few months going through different phases. So, March and April was clearly a very intense phase where every company and every CEO had to focus on just keeping our workers and keeping our stakeholders safe. So we work with over 10,000 farmers across the region, so primarily in Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia. And a lot of the focus was really to protect our stakeholders, so protecting our farmers, protecting our factory workers. And then lastly, in the last 6 weeks, I think from May to June, we've seen evolution in terms of being primarily a health crisis, becoming more focused. So in the last 100 days, I think it's been very fascinating for all of us, living through COVID-19 firsthand, to see the evolution of the crisis from fundamentally being one focus on health and hygiene to now being one focus on economics and economic recovery. For us, I think it's given us a particular opportunity to develop new platforms for the future. We're very involved with farming, so we work, as I said, with over 10,000 farmers around the region. Even before COVID, we've been focusing a lot on strengthening the supply chain and interactions with the farmers. So everything from agricultural productivity, harvesting, yields, irrigation, in certain crops that Taiwan was involved in, primarily on tapioca, mung bean, rice. We're very focused at farm level productivity. And I think going forward, that will definitely be a key focus of the company, because if we think about developing value from farm to shelf, enhancing and improving farm level productivity is very critical for us. The second thing that really makes us develop ourselves and be more resilient for the future is really asking ourselves, what are platforms for the next 10 or 20 years? So the two things that Taiwan is developing now, one is in biodegradable plastics. So we are focusing on how we're developing a new business model in plant-based bioplastics. So biodegradable packaging, compostable packaging, plant-based packaging from pulp, from fiber, from starch. We're developing a platform of new businesses to really address the plastics revolution and plant-based bioplastics. The second platform we're looking at in developing for the next 10 or 20 years is in plant proteins. To a wonderful array of different crops and different plants. So we look at mung bean, we look at rice, we look at arrowroot, we look at kutsu. There are many crops and plants that can be grown in Thailand, and not just Thailand, but around the region as well. So also developing a new business in plant-based protein, where we actually focus at the seed level and extracting different types of not just starch, but also the fiber and protein to put into other food ingredients. So we put all this together and ask us, what are platforms to the future? We think these are the two things that we can, play a leading role in terms of sustainability and innovation. So bioplastics would be one of them. And then finally, I think plant protein would be another of them. And a final thought about resilience is that I think, there's a joke that says, COVID-19 forces every company to go digital. Most of us won't be traveling, I think, for the next 3 to 4 months. Mm-hmm. So the most simple but powerful things like connecting very frequently with our teams, connecting very frequently with our customers, a lot of video calls, and just staying in touch, I think, is the most important. Thank you.
Thanks, Ran. So we've heard a lot of things that you and Taiwan tried to do to emerge stronger, to come back after COVID-19. And Richard Jones, I think you've introduced with a lot of expertise about recycling. What will you do to emerge stronger, to plant and to act?
Yeah, but the interesting thing that's happening now is a slight change. What we found out in the last couple of months is that a lot of people actually went back to plastics as sort of a hygienic trend, and sales of bottled water went up, and we started using our factories to produce fibers, especially for PPE for doctors and things. So wherever there's a risk, there's an opportunity. And we found that the actual COVID crisis became an opportunity to teach people that you do need plastic because it is hygienic. So what we are looking at for the future is how to create this awareness, because we realize that people tend to use a broom to sweep all plastics away, and they don't really get that plastics are all different in some way. And so what we're planning to do over the next couple of years really is try to educate and create awareness that we have the beginning of the issue, which is the creation of manufacture of PET, but we also have the end part, which is the recycling. And what we don't want, and I think nobody wants this, is for plastic to disappear into landfills and the oceans. However, 80% of plastic in the ocean actually does come from the land. So we need to teach people on the land, not so much on the beach, but actually further inland, that what you can do is you can keep your plastic bottles separately. There's always somebody who wants to come and buy them from you and then sell them to us. So what we've come up against again and again in this role of educator is the misunderstandings. So the things like the fact that PET has a lower carbon footprint than other types of packaging like aluminium cans, glass bottles, for example. It's several times better than it would be for these products, but people don't see that. And what we've discovered that to create a circular economy, you have to do a lot of in-depth education, and for different people that type of education is completely different. For example, for villagers, it's about bring us your bottles and we'll pay you for them. With urbanized people, I would say middle class and up, it's more of a case of teaching them that you're helping the environment when you do this, and creating a circular economy then becomes a tale of joining hands together with different people. So today we join, collect waste and collect plastic bottles, especially for us. But we need the ordinary people, everybody really, to join with us in that type of event. Now, for a publicly listed company like Indorama Ventures, we find that there's a lot of stakeholders who want to join in this as well. So you've got the regulators, you've got very much in Thailand, you have the SET and the SEC very keen to play a part in keeping Thailand clean and collecting waste. But all around the world, this happens. It just happens at different levels, that's all. So what we see going forward is that one thing is that people now realize that plastic won't go away that quickly. I mean, really, it's here for the long term. And there are things that people don't even address today. Like they think of plastic purely as a bottle, but plastic is everywhere. So you notice that Volvo, for example, in 2019 committed that they would run their cars on electricity, and which they've started to do with hybrids. But the key is, how far do you think those cars would go if they were as heavy as petrol or diesel engine cars? They wouldn't go that far at all. So what everybody's doing now is lightweighting vehicles, and you get this trend towards lightweighting. But at the same time, nobody realizes that the only way you can lightweight is to use plastic. I mean, with all due respect, you could take vegetable matter and you can make it into a plastic, but you wouldn't want to use that in automotives, for example, aeroplanes and things like this. So plastic is pretty much the solution to the future of all industries, in the sense that we want to lightweight, we want to have fewer greenhouse gases, which it does. And I'm thinking that if we can educate people simply to separate their plastics, there will always be somebody who's willing to buy it from you and somebody who's willing to recycle it and come back to life again as a recycled product. So today, you know, plastic only contributes about 2 to 3% of climate change, but it's a lot more for metal, paper, and things that basically anything like agriculture creates a lot more greenhouse gas than plastic does. So what we feel like is that if we can create this circular economy for plastics, if we can get people to understand that you collect it and bring it back again, I think then that we will be able to create a circular economy which will last for a long time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thanks, Richard. So what we heard from you that is great is that between planning and acting, it's about creating awareness. And that's so critical. And that involves lots of people, not only leaders or executors, but like what you mentioned exactly, engage all the stakeholders. So thanks a lot for bringing this into our considerations, into our conversation, because I think the next part, since our mission focused a lot on achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, which is expected to be achieved by 2030. So I'd like to ask some further questions that relate to your business pertaining to SDG. And I think thanks for our audiences, may pouring mal prediction. Something that from the audience question to the panelists, please share with us a concrete example or something that you can make sure that we can really implement the SDG. So I want to bring back here about the SDG and start with Dr. Dhiren, because I think I've learned that Thai Union Frozen has practiced a lot about the 10 principles. So how can company and supplier use the global goals underpinned by the 10 principles as a framework to operate in business? And it's now your turn, Dr. Dhiren.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think you've heard how all of the speakers here today, all of the companies really do rely on the framework of the Sustainable Development Goals. And to me, I think one of the greatest benefits is that it gives us all a common language for businesses to talk about on sustainability. So if one of us speaks about SDG 14, for example, life below water, or partnerships and collaboration, we understand immediately what that means. And it's like a shortcut. It's a great way for businesses